name ring bells in my motherfucking town. At the Audi lot, I'm trying to hold a couple down.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Rarri Vuitton. I'm back with another episode of Rarri Talks Rap. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the most exciting and unique personalities in hip-hop in probably the last 15 years. His unorthodox come up and rise to stardom. I'm talking about the one and only RiFF RAFF, aka Jody High Roller, aka the Texas Tornado, freestyle scientist, you name it. Before we get into the very unique way that RiFF RAFF rose to the top, first we have to give you a little bit of background and his story about his come up as an artist. RiFF RAFF was born Horst Simcoe, and he spent a lot of time in his childhood in both Texas and Minnesota. Over the years, it's been hard to get a true account of what RiFF RAFF's story really was. He's been purposely evasive in interviews, telling half-truths, kind of giving this sense of not knowing whether you should believe him or not, what story's true, what's not. From what I can gather, it seems to me like RiFF RAFF had a pretty normal childhood, moved around a little bit, was really into basketball. He ended up actually playing basketball for a short period of time at a junior college in Minnesota. He ended up giving that up. Sounds like he felt pretty disconnected living in southern Minnesota, and he ended up moving back to Texas, where the RiFF RAFF we know today would officially begin to form. RiFF RAFF started by working in the car industry, candy painting cars. He would meet different connections throughout Houston, Texas. One of those connections was a dude named Freestyle Bully, aka Ronald Vaughns. These two would begin to rap together, freestyle, sell CDs at the Sharpstown Mall, and kind of start to build that reputation around the city. As RiFF RAFF would grow, he would start to gain some popularity. According to his former manager and Screwed and Chopped legend OG Ron C, he wasn't necessarily taken very seriously in Houston at the time. While he was creating some early raps, building that persona, he actually got an opportunity, which was my first introduction to him, on an MTV show hosted by Farnsworth Bentley called From G's to Gents. Now, when I first saw this show, I remember RiFF RAFF and RiFF RAFF only. I only probably watched an episode or two, but there was one guy who stood out to me. This white guy with tattoos and cornrows who had this really interesting and kind of funny personality. I don't believe from my research that he stuck around the show long. I think he was eliminated only after a couple of episodes, but I remembered what he looked like. He's the kind of guy, especially at that time, where you see an image like that and he's hard to forget. Fast forward a couple of years later, digging into YouTube, looking for cool rap stuff like I usually would, I ended up stumbling across a music video of a guy who looked very familiar to me, and I was able to put two and two together and realize that this was the guy from G's to Gents, this RiFF RAFF. This was probably around, like, I want to say maybe 2010, something like that. He had a few music videos up at that time. I kind of started the process. There was the original Texas music videos that he shot with the candy paint cars, the Marc Jacobs, freestyle, a couple of random videos where him and this one chick, you know, kind of parading around the house, showing off different things that he had, just showcasing his sense of humor in a way. But there was something so magnetic about RiFF RAFF, such a gravitational pull to him. I admittedly didn't understand him at first. In fact, I didn't know what to think. Do I like this guy? Do I not? Is his music good? Is it bad? I couldn't quite figure him out. But in my opinion, that's a show of an interesting and great artist. I think when people play it too safe, sometimes it's hard to have a lasting impression. But there was something about RiFF RAFF where at first I didn't know what to think of it, but I kept finding myself coming back. RiFF RAFF had this amazing work ethic and desire to put out content, mainly on YouTube at the time, and it got to a point pretty early on with me where I caught myself almost addicted to what he was going to do next. Now, it's important to remember too, in these very early days of YouTube channels, there was the like and dislike bar. Nowadays, you can just like it or dislike it, but it doesn't show you the meter of how many people liked and disliked. On RiFF RAFF's videos back then, you would have maybe this much of a like part and like this much of a dislike. RiFF RAFF was very much not understood, and he took a lot of heat online because of his brash personality, and a lot of people didn't think he was the real deal, that this was who he really was, that this was some sort of a character or psyop or something that this guy was playing. But it added to the mystique and wonder of who RiFF RAFF really was. After gaining somewhat of a following, Simon Rex, also known as Dirt Nasty, was able to discover RiFF RAFF online, took an intrigue to him, reached out, and was able to convince him to come out and visit in Los Angeles. I want to just point out right now that RiFF RAFF meeting Dirt Nasty and Andy Milonakis holds the title for one of the most incredible YouTube videos of all time. There's like a 3-part series out there somewhere with Dirt Nasty, Andy Milonakis, and an early RiFF RAFF, presumably on drugs or drunk, freestyling, bantering. It's unbelievable content, still holds up to this day. RiFF RAFF eventually begins to make his way out to Los Angeles full time, and this begins what I like to call RiFF RAFF's Rice era, where there was a heavily drug-fueled motivation to drop as many music videos as possible. And about 2010, RiFF RAFF begins going on this incredible music video run. I'm talking, it felt like every 2-3 days, RiFF RAFF was going in the studio, making a song, dropping the video that day. Half of these videos, mind you, had some of the most unprofessional and ridiculous features I've ever seen. I don't know where he was finding these guys off the street. Occasionally you'd have a good collaborator like a guy like Getty that would pop out, but most of these guys, it's like random kid that never rapped before, it sounded like, probably paid RiFF RAFF in either money, drugs, or both, and just threw out a video. This was a really interesting era. This was around the same time a Lil B and a Soulja Boy were dropping mass amounts of videos, no matter the quality. Kind of the beginning of flooding the internet with content. There was something, like I said, so captivating about RiFF RAFF's persona. I couldn't look away. Speaking of Soulja Boy, as RiFF RAFF continued this insane output, Soulja Boy began to take notice and signed him to his SODMG label. This was the official switch from MTV RiFF RAFF to RiFF RAFF SODMG. All RiFF RAFF really got for this was a SODMG chain, tattooed the logo on his body, which was a common theme with RiFF RAFF. Anytime he would get an opportunity or something, he would automatically just slap the logo and show his loyalty on his body. RiFF RAFF and Soulja Boy would do some songs together. He would continue on his run, and it's important to note that at this time we were starting to see that RiFF RAFF really enjoyed the rice, if you will. There was even multiple legendary videos where RiFF RAFF would full on, no blur out, no censored, take a $100 bill, chop up a big line or two of cocaine, do it right there on the camera. Again, no censorship whatsoever. Turn the beat on and just start freestyling for 7 straight minutes. I mean, this was must-see content. I'd never seen an artist openly use cocaine, seemingly have no shame around it as well. Again, it just added to the absolute wild aesthetic and vibe that RiFF RAFF radiated. He didn't seem like a real person. He really kind of seemed like he was from another planet. So after a couple of collaborations with Soulja Boy and about a year of the RiFF RAFF SODMG thing, something went south within that. RiFF RAFF wasn't really getting paid. I think that was pretty much a common theme with any Soulja Boy artist. He'd get a guy around for like a year, they'd have some clout, they'd do some music together, then they'd go running off, and it would usually be a pretty ugly breakup. This would be no different. Soulja Boy and RiFF RAFF split ways. Soulja Boy took to saying RiFF RAFF was a cokehead. RiFF RAFF took to saying Soulja Boy never paid him. After that, no MTV, no SODMG, and I feel like this must have motivated him to a whole new level, because now he was literally dropping like 4 or 5 music videos a week. I think he had like 95 videos in a year's time frame. He was working with a guy named Maxwell Albert. He was a videographer slash manager that RiFF would also have a falling out with at some point over money disputes, but these guys had a perfect formula going. Make the song, they'd shoot the video, they'd have it out, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Now within this, plenty of songs that were misses, but a few songs that really started to catch on for RiFF RAFF. Some of those that stick out to me, stuff like Larry Bird, Brain Freeze with Lil Debbie, Lil Mama I'm Sorry. They were just on a roll. They had a system down. Other people within the industry started to take notice. He started doing songs with bigger names, one of which was Action Bronson. From what I understand, the Alchemist actually discovered RiFF RAFF, showed him to Bronson. They shot a legendary video. Chief Keef wanted in on the action as well. They shot a video for Cuz My Gear. So it's safe to say RiFF RAFF was hot, and he was starting to make some real noise in the industry. And at the same time, there was this massive kind of turning point at some point. There was a few people like me kind of saw the vision and were able to admit to themselves early on, hey, I kind of like this guy. But again, most people were very skeptical. They didn't want to like him. They were probably fans longer than they wanted to admit. But at a certain point, it shifted. Suddenly RiFF RAFF was getting the 75% likes, and people were starting to catch on and say, I think I actually like this guy. They were starting to see the kind of the genius behind him and just the authenticity. After so much time, people were starting to realize, I don't think this guy's a gimmick. I think this is really who he is. I'm captivated by it. So Diplo took notice and actually signed RiFF RAFF to his first record deal under Mad Decent Records. That would begin the formation of the Neon Icon album, which would be RiFF RAFF's first debut and really his first chance starts to push himself out to the mainstream and really become a part of the industry and less of a internet underground sensation. While he was creating this album, this would not stop this output though. RiFF RAFF continued to hammer out the music videos. He was all over World Star Hip Hop as well. He ended up dropping a project called Hologram Panda with Dame Grease, and then slowly and surely his album would come to fruition and he would drop his first single, How to Be the Man, produced by DJ Mustard. He got some pretty big features on that album as well. Names like Mac Miller, who also produced the track, Mike Posner, Slim Thug, and Paul Wall on the remix of How to Be the Man, and more. Once this album finally came out, RiFF RAFF eventually got the shine and some of that mainstream attention that he was always striving for. This would slowly start to end that Lil B-esque output, a music video every 2-3 days max. You could tell that he was kind of reaching a new level in his career. There was probably more people around him that were trying to calculate things more. When you're trying to get on, a guy like RiFF RAFF, who there was going to be no stopping him. He was this kind of guy who was going to get on by any means necessary, and he had an unbelievable work ethic. I don't care if people don't think some of the songs and stuff RiFF RAFF made were high quality or well thought out or whatever you want to say. The bottom line is they were catchy. He had very provocative lyrics that seemingly didn't make sense, but if you thought about it long enough, it would, or it would paint a really weird picture in your head that was interesting. It takes a lot of work to be able to do it, especially at that output with professional style videography. I'm sure a lot of money, time, and energy went into it. His wild antics and extreme output 1000% got him on the map. After the Neon Icon came out, things would start to happen for RiFF RAFF. He went on the red carpet with Katy Perry and Versace denim suits, similar to the Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, kind of an ode to that whole thing. There were just little moments that were all kind of happening. There was the whole James Franco Spring Breakers thing that got RiFF RAFF some headlines and publicity as well, where the character was extremely obviously a RiFF RAFF ripoff, if you will, for lack of a better term. He would go on to do some other stuff, like start an official group with Andy Milonakis and Dirt Nasty called 3 Loco. RiFF RAFF was officially a part of Hollywood. He was a personality that people were starting to not only recognize but even respect and come to like. RiFF RAFF would only go on to release the one album, Neon Icon, with Mad Decent. His second album, the follow-up sophomore LP, would be called The Peach Panther. That album actually peaked at 3 on the rap charts as well, so there was still some success there with RiFF RAFF. At this point, he kind of had his career. He had built himself up over the years, built a solid fan base, and to this day, he continues to tour. He continues to be relevant, drop music. He just actually put out a song probably a year or two ago with Wiz Khalifa called I Want a Ferrari. RiFF RAFF's kind of jumped into his 80s pop sounding type of bag, which is really dope because he's always been kind of a Max B legend when it comes to hooks, and it's a really cool sound for RiFF RAFF, and he's a guy that just continues to reinvent himself. He had a time where it seemingly began to get into his bodybuilding phase where RiFF RAFF turned into the burly boy and he was like on steroids, just got absolutely massively jacked. But yeah, I'll always look at RiFF RAFF as one of my favorite just artists or entertainers in probably the last 15 years. Just a guy who absolutely captivated my attention. We'll never see another like him. In my opinion, kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of guys to just not care and to just really go for it. He did not play by the rules. It was not a conservative type of thing or hoping that everybody would like him. This guy was unapologetically himself. He faced so many different accusations of being a fraud or being some sort of a calculated thing, but I think people overestimate some of these artists. Like, I don't think RiFF RAFF sat in a lab and was like, I'm gonna come up with this master plan where I'm gonna be this guy with cornrows and tattoos and I'm gonna take over the rap game like a giant psyop. No, I just think this is a guy who got around the right people in Houston, started to reinvent himself and identify with hip-hop culture and the Houston culture in general, and then he grew from there and he leaned into it and he was unapologetically himself. He's been relevant and he's lasted in the game for 15 years because he wasn't a gimmick. So he'll always be a legend in my book. This is Rarri Talks Rap. Thank you for watching. If you like it, subscribe, holler at your boy. I'm out. Peace.